Hey guys, welcome back to World of Warships. Today we're taking a look at the Tirpitz B. That's because Black Friday is coming up and I need to start going over these ships. There's a lot of B variant ships at this point, and it's a really good time if you're interested in some of these premium ships. Tirpitz is such a classic, so I thought it would be a great starting point. As always, I'm recommending the Black Friday event alongside Christmas time. They give a 50% off a year of premium time. Those are the two best value events to spend money on, in my opinion. Outside of dockyards. Dockyards are also extremely good if you're interested in the ship and you have time to grind. And considering the amount of doubloons that they're giving out just by playing the game over the next few updates, they've been doing that since August or so and all the way through till Christmas time. So just by playing the game, you should be able to earn enough doubloons to get some of these B variants. When it comes to the cost compared to their normal armory counterparts, that's usually 30% off on tier 8 and below premiums, and tier 9 and 10 premium special ships are a 15% discount. So with the Tirpitz here, it's 11,300 doubloons in the armory right now. 30% off that would make it 7,910, which is interesting. And this is where I don't quite have confirmation yet from Wargaming. I will pin a comment and put something in the description below when I find this out. But we had a change recently with ship rotation and content rarity. They've standardized the prices across tiers for different ships based on their rarity, but for the most part, this uncommon rarity, 11,300 for tier 8s. And that is different from what it was last year. So I'm not sure if 7,910 doubloons will be the Tirpitz B cost. Last year, for example, was 8,900, so 1,000 doubloons more. It'll be interesting to see what they end up doing. But for now, let's talk about how Tirpitz holds up in the current World of Warships. This is a very old battleship. Took a look at Montana recently, so maybe I'm in a bit of a mood to take a look at some of these classics. This was introduced even before the regular German battleship tech tree was introduced. And it had torpedoes, which is unique compared to Bismarck. But here's the thing. Other than that, they are basically the exact same ship, Tirpitz and Bismarck. So if you're looking purely for playstyle, you don't need to get this ship in order to gain the German brawling battleship playstyle. Torpedoes are very useful at very close range brawls. Certainly to prevent people from ramming is very useful. But for the most part, I find myself valuing a hydro a little bit more. And Tirpitz, with these 380mm guns, does have a better reload over the 406mm counterparts at this tier. So instead of a 30-second reload, you're getting down to that 26-second reload base, which can catch people off guard. However, they are rather inconsistent guns, and Tirpitz has a lot of HP, Bismarck as well, and they got that turtleback armor. However, I find the superstructures on these German battleships get farmed down very quickly. You can gain a lot of potential damage in low tier games when you're top tier, facing tier 7, tier 6s, but if you get that tier 9 and especially tier 10 up tier, you are massively outgunned. The guns do not feel great in those up tiers, and certainly your armor doesn't hold up either. It feels like these days people know to shoot for superstructure on this ship, and because of that, no matter how you angle, it's going to take some pretty massive hits, especially into those up tiers. However, when you face your own tier, when you get into brawling range with these secondaries that go 11.5 kilometers, it can do some very good work still. Turtlebacks typically mean you aren't going to get citadeled, but that can result in some massive full pan damage. So we still need to be angling our ship. We don't want to allow those broadside hits. And with this ship having decent firing angles, that should be relatively easy to accomplish. The secondaries, though, don't have the best accuracy, and that's a big issue here, since they don't have the best DPM either. So the Schlieffen line, the Ohio, Massachusetts, Georgia, things like that, Libertad also, they all have the same built-in accuracy buff, and it's a pretty massive jump over something like Tirpitz, Bismarck, the Preußen line. And while that is a little bit better on this line with Tirpitz as well than standard battleship secondary dispersion, it's not enough to make these secondaries feel very consistent, I would say. At closer ranges, you're going to get a decent number of hits, but out to their max range at 11.5, I don't find them to be quite as useful as some of the other secondary battleships in the game these days. It's just power creep over time, I guess, is what it comes down to. It's still good at brawling thanks to the decent armor and solid amount of HP against its own tier. Just don't expect these secondaries to purely carry you like they might on the Pan American battleship line, or even things like the Schlieffen, right? The secondaries do so much more damage. Fortunately for us, the guns can work. Here we're getting a 5 Citadel game, even with a full secondary build. This game and the next one is a full secondary build, and I tried the hybrid build as well. Either one can work quite well, and honestly, still getting around 10 kilometers of secondary range with a hybrid build is still quite good, and that allows us to take main gun accuracy, which can give us quite a bit better consistency out of these main guns. So if you're looking for a secondary brawling torpedo battleship out of Black Friday, this could be a good one, especially if you're getting it for doubloons. I would definitely recommend Massachusetts, of course, if you're wanting one of the best tier 8 battleships for brawling in the entire game. The main guns are better, it's a tankier ship, the heals come back sooner. You may not get those torpedoes, but overall I find Massachusetts to be quite a lot stronger than something like the Tirpitz. However, that ship and a few others are for cash only. They limit these rarer ships, Massachusetts, Jean Bart, I believe Azatio and Alaska are the 4 that you can't get for doubloons, and that is quite unfortunate. Didn't really make as much sense last year, so pretty frustrated by that, but this year, considering the amount of doubloons they've been giving away over the last few updates, I can understand that a little bit more this time. Still quite frustrating though if you're looking for a Massachusetts. Tirpitz though could be an option, as well as Brandenburg, which we could take a look at soon too. That one, smaller caliber guns, worse firing angles, less HP, but you get a few more secondaries for your troubles, and overall they play rather similarly, I would say. So either one, whatever you are more interested in. They can do quite well in randoms, but they're mainly focused on the brawling game modes. So brawls or ranked modes, anything like that, they're going to do quite well. Every once in a while you get some really nice salvos, okay? But don't count on it, all right? I do not trust these main guns at all. I found it a little bit frustrating as well playing right now. It's Liberty Harbor, so maybe that is changing my experience a little bit, but the number of missions for rocket and bomb hits seems a little insane to me. So I ran into carriers every single time. And Tirpitz does not have good AA. Not that many ships do, but this one in particular is quite bad. So you're a bit of a sitting duck for any time a carrier is in the battle. So that would lead me to want to play a little further back, but then my ship doesn't work quite well at those ranges. Here we're seeing the value in having torpedoes at close range, not necessarily to push, but to prevent people from pushing around islands and YOLO torping us. Sure, we didn't know he was coming necessarily because we didn't have a hydro, but Bismarck, with only having a hydro and no torps, might have had a little bit more trouble there. That said, we could reposition a little bit easier and know he's coming, get out of the way sooner. It's all about whether your preference is to have the torps or the hydro. Hydro's more defensive, passive, and the torpedoes are much more aggressive. Here you're going to see some of the value and downside of Turtleback right now, because that was a 30k salvo into our side. We didn't die, we did not get citadeled. So good job, Turtleback, right? But that's still a lot of damage to be eating. It guarantees full pens is the problem. So you do need to be angling it against battleships, especially closer range. But then they shoot your superstructure for another reasonably consistent 10 to 15k. And to be fair, that is quite a lot better. Broadside grounded Helena at 7.3 kilometers. And a bit of that inconsistency pops up yet again. It is a difficult ship to play these days, getting into these closer ranges and then not always feeling rewarded for it. And of course, when we get into these closer range battles, we signal ourselves out to be the target of the enemy carrier, and to be fair, everyone else on the enemy team. If you push up, you're just closer to everyone to use their guns and torps on. So it is very difficult to position something like the Tirpitz, and that is not unique to this ship. That is just all brawling battleships these days. But you feel it a little bit more with the old ones that don't have any crazy special gimmicks, especially like the Libertad launch with its insane acceleration and tankiness. That ship is still incredibly tanky. It can sometimes get away with this kind of thing. Valparaiso certainly can. But looking at Tirpitz in comparison to that, you gotta be much more careful. So moving on to a more hybrid focused build, you should notice the accuracy on the main guns is a little bit better, but we do lack some of that secondary range. It's not too much. I mean, we still get 10.1 on these secondaries, which is great still, and allows us to have some supplemental damage. But considering the accuracy on these secondaries already isn't the best, I don't mind missing out on a little bit more range because it doesn't feel like they're doing all that much at that maximum range anyway. Whereas gaining more consistency out of our main guns allows us to get, what, like a 17,500 damage salvo into a Bismarck? That's our turtleback armor, protecting from citadels, but guaranteeing a lot of full pens when you hit most of your shells. So I'm not sure which one I would necessarily recommend. Either one can work. I found myself getting a little bit frustrated though while playing with the accuracy build and still getting some of those inconsistent salvos. And that's just what you got to deal with when you're playing these German battleships. If you've played the main line, you probably know what you're getting into. While the experience isn't that much different than something like the Bismarck, I will say it is really nice, of course, with these premium ships to be able to run Luchens on, that's the special German commander, on these ships without re-speccing and without retraining the commander. One of the big downsides of the tech tree ships. You can't move commanders around very easily. And one of the key advantages on premiums, other than, of course, the improved credit income. This is a rather long-range salvo, of course, so, you know, maybe we shouldn't be expecting quite so much out of Tirpitz guns, but it's still a broadside cruiser at that longer range, with a somewhat exposed citadel. And it wasn't the best dispersion. Maybe it was unlocked, maybe we had some sort of island bugs there, and the reason I think that is because of this salvo. Guns looking a lot more accurate out of the barrels, and now we're going to see if you roll really well on the RNG dice, you can get a triple citadel on a Nevsky at that range. They can perform. They can do well. Tirpitz is not a bad ship, okay? It's just that it's hard to play in today's meta. The up tiers can hurt. Certainly, dealing with carriers, trying to find positions where you can brawl, it's very difficult. Sometimes taking some huge hits, even into your angled ship, hurts quite a lot. But we can sometimes abuse this aiming system ourselves. Here, caught broadside to a Kremlin, slowing down and turning away causes him to overlead a bit, and of course, shells land short. I really do like the little bit of extra reload that these guns get over something like the Massachusetts, which has a 30-second reload. It allows us to sometimes catch more people off guard. It's not quite like the 20 seconds or so we see on Preußen as well as Republic. That really prevents anyone from getting that bow in, caught bow in, and then turn away type thing without having to deal with your reload. That 20 seconds does not give them enough time, so you're always going to catch someone off guard like that. But with 26 seconds, you're pretty close. Certainly a little bit of AR sprinkled in there, and you can prevent people from getting that free turn after you shoot, which is quite nice. As is this improved shell velocity. The range is also pretty solid too, allowing us to play in some of those very passive games and still be using our main guns. But the shell velocity is really nice, especially compared to some of those very slow American shells that we'll see on Massachusetts, for example. It's a lot easier to lead our target. It means we also give the target less time to maneuver, maybe get themselves angled before the shells land. So while it's a little bit less consistent, I would say, there are some very nice key values about these main guns too. It can be played as that mid-range brawler, maybe not focused on getting into the closest range engagements, but playing in that 15 kilometers of range can do extremely well. Although we do only get 380mm guns, so that overmatch is a bit of an issue. We can't get through 27mm of armor, something like a Hipper. He's broadside now, so we should do some pretty good damage. But if he angles to us, then he's going to auto-bounce our shells. 406s will get through that. Or we'll get a little bit trolled. It happens still, okay? It does very well most of the time, but you still can get trolled. It's a little bit of a problem when it comes to that overmatch. So you need to get to the flanks, you need to find broadsides. As we're getting, oh my goodness, why is everybody just sailing broadside to me? And why are they not taking damage? It's a German battleship, unfortunately. Even with accuracy mod like I have here. And we just took like 15k angled from that NC. That armor issue cropping up yet again. At least we're fast, so we can get to these flanks. We can find opportunities to catch broadsides. We're not quite so slow, which is very, very nice. Unfortunately, we do take AP bomb citadels. It doesn't seem like that many ships actually take those AP bomb citadels these days, but Tirpitz definitely does. It is quite painful, and we can't heal any of this damage back. So I think I took like 25k, 30k damage from AP bombs there, and none of it was healable. Our heal takes a long time to come off cooldown too in comparison to something like Massachusetts, so I don't find myself often getting through all of my heals either, in brawls especially. But even in some of the longer games, it's a little bit tricky to take damage strategically, play close enough so you take some damage, but not so close that you are fully committed, and then you go down before using all of your heals. It's not a very easy ship to play in randoms these days. Maybe it's because of these Liberty Harbor missions, but I get the feeling that Tirpitz is fine still, but it's not quite the powerhouse that it once was, and trying to get in range to use these torps was actually quite difficult. Everybody loves to see a German battleship pushing in. It's free damage. It's the XP pinata, right? So finding the right opportunity to do that is quite challenging, at least when it comes to random battles. Here, we did manage to get into a brawl where we can use our torpedoes. Although here, he's actually going to open up and give us broadside. I wonder if that's because he knows I have torps and he's going to try and make a play happen. But if he goes for the ram, well, it's very easy for me to deny that with torpedoes. If he opens up in an attempt to finish me off before I can get my torp angle, well, then he's just opening himself up for citadels. So I still didn't get to use the torps close range. I guess I did manage it on the Schultz there, but very tricky to find an opportunity to actually use these torps in random battles these days. Much better in brawls and ranked game modes, anything like that. And it is really, really nice to have these torpedoes, especially now that they've changed how module damage works. Tirpitz, any of these German battleships that have torpedoes that are just out exposed on the deck armor, they often got permanently destroyed very quickly into the battle. And that means you just don't have them for the rest of the game. And it was very, very frustrating. You're one differentiating factor from a Bismarck, and it gets permanently destroyed instantly. It's how it felt. Really nice to see that change. So a nice quality of life for something like Tirpitz, as well as the secondary staying alive a lot longer. The 105s in particular are your main source of DPM on your secondaries, and they were the weakest, most vulnerable to a few HE salvos getting permanently destroyed. That's no longer the case, and it does make Tirpitz much more viable in the late games and not have a bunch of that secondary and torp power completely taken out before you even get into that brawl. So while it is older at this point, it is still nice to see that Tirpitz can perform. There are, I think, better options as far as brawling battleships go at this tier, but Tirpitz is by no means a terrible, unplayable ship. It's a little bit more challenging, certainly, but in the right situations it can work, and certainly having torpedoes on it is very, very nice to have. There's an absolute ton of B variant ships at this point. Look at them all, including a few new ones, of course, that are coming yet. Things like Rhode Island, Puerto Rico. We'll take a look at those closer to the updates, but I need to go over a lot of these, and I'm not sure which ones that I need to play for you guys, so maybe comment down below which ones you want to see. There's a lot of videos that I could make, and I'd love to know which ones you're the most interested in. I got a few ideas, of course, my personal favorites I will be going over, but let me know what you would like to see. As far as the build on something like the Tirpitz, this was the hybrid build that I was going for. It's hard to fit in secondaries and some survivability, so trying to get to 5th heal here if I'm playing more mid-range with 2 million potential damage, but then we have to give up Adrenaline Rush. Maybe that's not the best idea. I was running this skill purely for the consumable reload. This does not help our AA near enough to make it any good. It's just purely for the consumable reload, trying to get to our heals quicker. It's something I really miss when I'm going to a ship with standard heal cooldown that's trying to brawl and trying to get to close range, when I'm used to something like Massachusetts with 40-second heal cooldowns. We want concealment, of course, because getting shot at instantly off spawn is very difficult. So trying to maneuver our ship is very, very useful. Trying to get between those open water positions, using islands to isolate 1v1s, that kind of thing. All the standard brawling stuff that we want to do. It's relatively quick. It's all right on the maneuverability side as far as turning radius. It's okay. It's usable enough. Getting these secondaries out to like 10.1 is quite nice still. But if you want to run the full secondary build, all you would do is swap over to Adrenaline Rush, because you're not getting 5 heals if you're going in and brawling. And you probably also want to swap over to IFAG, which I was running. Now, those were the 2 changes that I made to run full secondaries. That allows these 105s actually to pen 32 millimeters, which is a key armor threshold at this tier and well worth using if you're just full sending in for those brawling. Using secondary mod versus aiming systems mod. My best game with the guns, the one where I got the most citadels, was one where I was running secondary mod. It feels like it's just RNG, man. It really does. It is a little bit more consistent with aiming systems mod 1, but 8 guns, German battleship dispersion, particularly Sigma, is quite bad. So it's a bit of a RNG dice roll when the main guns are going to cooperate or not. At least they have a relatively quick reload, and the range is very nice, allowing us to at least still use our guns in those very passive up tiers. It's not easy to play, though. It is certainly not easy to play. The armor does look amazing, though, until you realize that you go like this, and suddenly you're guaranteeing full pens, and then you angle, and suddenly you're guaranteeing full pens into your superstructure, because it's just such a long, large superstructure that if we're angled like this, then everybody aims up here, and the shells will arm and explode and detonate into your superstructure. Even AP. It's not just HE as a weak point here. We do have a little bit of an icebreaker, which, is kind of nice if you ever end up facing those 32 mil overmatching battleships, although that doesn't happen all that often these days. So very interesting to take a look at the Tirpitz here in 2025. Back when I started playing this game, a couple of years into the game, Tirpitz came out and I was so interested in this ship. I wasn't willing to spend on it, but man, I wish I could have had it. And once I got it, I had quite a lot of fun with it. These days, there is still fun to be had, but it's quite a bit harder to find. But let me know what you think in the comments down below. Really enjoy taking a look at some of these classic ships, though. It's really fun to see how good they can still be. Thank you very much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.